Good evening. For General Motors, bad news is turning into a pileup. Today, GM announced yet another recall, this time 1.5 million vehicles worldwide, including Chevy Malibus and Pontiac G6s, because the power steering can go out. That is in addition to the recall of 2.6 million vehicles because of faulty ignition switches that are now linked to 13 deaths. Tomorrow, Congress will hear from GM and the families of the dead. Jeff Glor is following this.
I'm here to speak for Natasha, who can't speak for herself.
This is my daughter, Kelly Erin Ruddy. She died when she was 21 years old. She was killed in a Chevy Cobalt.
As parents of children killed in recalled GM vehicles sat down to talk with us in Washington, House members were looking at this background report issued before tomorrow's hearings. The report asks, why did it take so long, and gives a timeline of the GM ignition switch problem. 2001, a pre-production report for the Saturn Ion identified an issue. 2002, parts supplier Delphi says GM approved the switch even though it did not meet GM specifications. 2004, a GM engineering inquiry was opened. It was closed 1 year later, March 2005. A GM report said fixes would take too long and cost too much. None of the solutions represents an acceptable business case. 4 months later, July 29, 2005, the first death linked to the defect, a 16-year-old killed in a Chevy Cobalt in Maryland. Amber Rose was Terry Batista's daughter.
It's just horrific that money is put over human lives, and it's just not right, and they need to be held accountable for it.
GM has admitted the ignition switch on more than 2 million vehicles may suddenly move to the off or accessory position, shutting off the engine, disabling power steering, power brakes, the seatbelts, and the airbags. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, noticed a trend in consumer complaints in 2007, but never investigated further. The first recall by GM didn't come until February of this year, 13 years after the problem was discovered. Tomorrow, the acting head of NHTSA will testify before the House. So will GM CEO Mary Barra. Laura Christian also lost her daughter.
There's nothing that she can truly say that's going to make up for any of this. But, to be clear, Mary Barra needs to give us the answers.
In opening statements tomorrow, the acting head of NHTSA will say GM didn't give them the full picture. Quote, GM had critical information that would have helped identify this defect. Barra will say, quote, I cannot tell you why it took years for a safety defect to be announced, but I can tell you that we will find out. Scott, House hearings tomorrow will be followed by Senate hearings on Wednesday.
Jeff Glor in Washington. Jeff, thank you very much. Now, we have a full list of the cars in today's GM recall. You can find them on our website, cbsnews.com.